With the mission to keep as many men on as many guns for as long as possible, we called him Doc. Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. And now your host, Aaron Chief Seabird.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? Hey, this is Combat Vet Vision. This is a place where I really get to talk about things that happened in my life. From going to the battlefield 3 times, coming back, dealing with a lot of my own injuries after being hit with a mortar round April of 2006. And hey, I talk a lot about Warrior Built Foundation, PTSD Foundation. There's a lot of other things that the VA does. It has a PSA on here. There's a lot of really great organizations doing some really great things. I have a good buddy of mine on. It's coming on today, Jon O'Hare. Him and I served in 3-5 together in the initial push, and it's going to be great to hear his story and what he's doing now and stuff like that. So, hey, Jon, thanks a lot for being on the show. Appreciate you, brother.
Aaron Chief, what is going on? I'm stoked to be here. Appreciate you having me on. So yeah, a lot of history between you and I and everything we've accomplished in our careers and what we're doing now.
Yeah, and you're still in. You got just a little bit longer of a stretch to go.
Yeah, July will be 22 years. I actually just put my paperwork through NSIPs for Fleet Reserve, so now I'm just waiting to hear back from PERS to give me that blessing. August 31st, 2024. That'll give me 23 years and 1 month. Not that I'm keeping track, but
Yeah, and it's when we go back to 3-5, I mean that was your birthplace into the FMF world, and that was all of ours really. And then obviously, we got to do a deployment together before the combat kind of kicked off, and we went over the 31st MU. Was on Okinawa when 9/11, right before 9/11 kicked off. I mean, we were already slotted to do some things. And then when we came back, we had to gear up and get ready to go to Iraq. And we got to, and the cool thing about O'Hare and I mean, we're part of this 15 corpsman group that constantly stays together in an email string and a text string, and we do some really cool things and get to hear each other's stories. And there's something that bonds us together in combat. And I have a lot of different combat buddies that I talk to. Jon's accompanied me into my warrior groups too to check that out. He's a man of God. He's done a lot of things in that fashion. Really helps his faith and pushes faith, and really helps the guys out in a lot of different ways. So, Jon, tell your story, brother. I just there's a lot to tell. 22 years.
Yeah. To keep it in a timely fashion, like Chief said, we both met in 3-5. I got there right after they came back off of a MU. I was actually just getting into Corpsman A school when 9/11 happened. That changed a lot of perspective on why we kind of joined. People ask why I joined and what my plan was, and I didn't have one. I kind of just fell into the military. I have a heavy military experience in my family, both my mom and dad's side. My mom and dad were the only ones that did not serve. My dad got the classic, well, it's Vietnam. You either go to Vietnam or you go to college. So my dad chose college, and my mom also went to college. And but my grandparents on both sides, aunts and uncles on both sides all served. So I knew what the military was, but I kind of just fell into it. I didn't have a whole lot going on. When I graduated high school, I tried college. That didn't work out. I was already involved in marine rescue, ocean rescue, and fire rescue before I came in the military. So I had that background. So when I came into the military, they're like, hey, what do you want to do? I was like, I have a fire rescue, marine rescue background. They're like, cool, you want to be a corpsman. So I chose that. Went through Corps school, went through field med, and then I ended up over at 3-5 in 2002, right when they came off the MU, and all of a sudden we get the warning order that we're going to invade Iraq. And, that was kind of a wild experience. I didn't really know what to think about that, but, I had good mentors, Chief being one of them. I had my boys and weapons company brought me up, and, we go to Kuwait, we prepare, we crossed the line, and when that track door, which I was on a track with 81 millimeter mortar system and weapons company, and it was surreal to say the least. It felt like kind of like a Hollywood set. I didn't know what to think. You know, the oil field was on fire. There was black smoke everywhere, and a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, and that was kind of when I realized things just got real. And a completely different experience of any trauma medicine experience I had in the civilian sector. You know, there's rounds pinging off of things and explosions going on, and you know, you just kind of fall back on your training. You just switch on. You know, a lot of things just kind of disappear around you, and you just concentrate on what's right in front of you. You know, I was lucky enough in my part of that whole push. There wasn't a whole lot of battlefield medicine, at least on my own guys. You know, I treated a lot of Iraqis that got pulled over, a couple of gunshot wounds, you know, people who've been fragged by something, but you know, the emotional aspect wasn't really there because it wasn't my own guys. You know, occasionally when they got sick, I took care of them, but it wasn't until we came back, and as we were transitioning back from Iraq to home, you know, a couple of us were joking. We were like, man, we just stirred a hornet's nest. We're going back. This isn't over. And when I got back, that was October of 2003. And immediately when I got back, they asked, hey, we got a group that's spinning up to go right back to Iraq, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. You know, they need experience. And without even hesitating, I was like, yep, I want to go. I want to do this. I want to see what this is all about. And so I transitioned from 3.5 over to 2.4 in November. And I was home for maybe 3 months. 1 month of that was back in training, a month off. And then before I knew it, I was on a plane back to Iraq again. And so that was for the push from January to September, October of 2004. And that was a completely different experience. That's where all of the training I had, which at the time was kind of minimal. We didn't have a whole lot of combat medicine training. You know, we kind of just wrote the book on our own on how we were going to treat things using really old equipment. We didn't have all the new sexy tourniquets at the time. We didn't have all of the battle dressings that we have now, chest seals, all that stuff. We kind of just made it. And dealing with that, you know, we lost a few corpsmen on that one. You know, we lost a lot of Marines. We had an entire company that was basically combat ineffective, that was stationed at a combat outpost in Ramadi. And a lot of my guys from 3.5 weapons came over because we had no machine gunners. You know, we were riding in vehicles that weren't armored up. We had to armor them up ourselves by tactically acquiring from the Army all of their ballistic shields and stuff. And, you know, I saw a lot of carnage during that one. You know, it hit hard, but it was just one of those things. You're just an operator mentality. You just keep pushing forward, and you don't really know how to process it because they didn't teach us how to process it. We didn't have all the programs we have now. You know, we just kind of just got together and, you know, pushed through. And, you know, we came back from 2004, and I mean, I was on a warpath, you know, and I couldn't even explain it. Like, I just, you know, trying to work through everything that we saw in Ramadi and going door to door fighting and actually, you know, getting it into with seeing people, seeing their eyes, the amount of hatred that the group of fighters that we were going against truly did not want us there, and they did not like us, and they wanted to end everything about who we were and what we stood for. So when I got back, I, you know, was able to meet up with a lot of my buddies from 3.5, and, you know, and learning how to process things, we drink. You know, that's how we get together, and we drink, and we just kind of are in chaos. And that kind of like is where my stories started to unfold. Was, you know, I'm Doc. My job is to be 100% all the time. If I fall, if I fail, the mission fails. And so in order to be able to take care of my guys, I had to carry on that persona that I was kind of bulletproof. I was invincible, you know, because I needed to be there. I needed to be strong for them. I needed to be the person who they could come and talk to. And a big piece of my life that I kind of stepped away from, and I didn't realize that there was this hole and I couldn't fill it. And it was my own faith that I had before I came in the military. and relying on God to always be the one I could lean on, I kind of pushed that away. I was like, oh, that's going to make me soft. I can't reveal that about myself. I'm a warrior, and the whole idea of being a warrior for God really didn't click with me, out of understanding how my faith could work into my own healing process and how I could, bring that to, the group that I was with. So I fell into what they were doing, was partying, drinking, and just, completely out of control. And before I could even think about what I was doing next, when we came back from Ramadi in October of 2004, I ended up doing a split tour and went right back again to support the invasion of second invasion of Fallujah. I believe that's what it was. And that's you guys were out there with 3-5, and I was with this like joint task force where basically we were just bouncing around. But before I could even really get comfortable, they kind of found out I was there. I wasn't supposed to deploy again. I was supposed to actually be home, because they had that whole, like, you're supposed to be home for 90 days thing, and I wasn't. And I was married at the time. And so they were like, yeah, dude, you got to go home. You can't be here. You got to be home with your wife. So I ended up getting pulled off the deployment and sent back home. And I was working at division schools. And that's where we basically started combat trauma management. And so I was working with a bunch of the guys over at division schools, and we were redeveloping how we work on the battlefield, how we do real battlefield medicine, borrowing all the stuff from Army Ranger medics and just different groups that had a lot more advanced training. And we were able to implement that in and create a program. While I was there, I was not in a good situation with my marriage. I was a complete disaster. I was angry. I didn't know why I was angry. I was dealing with what I know now as a lot of depression, survivor's guilt, and just my own understanding of post-traumatic stress, where I was just on a constant warpath, and I was angry at the world, and I didn't know why. I didn't know how to handle it. And so I just was a hot mess, and I was drinking all the time. Like, it was just out of control. But I was functioning at my job. I excelled at my job. I knew what I was doing, and that was where I could always get away with basically, never having to face my own issues. I could just do my job. So then I ended up going through a few schools and ended up over at 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. I got augmented I was over at a clinic that took care of Marine recruits, 31 Area Branch Medical Clinic on Camp Pendleton. And so I ended up getting augmented from there and deployed with 2-7. And I was with their sniper platoon and went through all their schools to be able to operate with them. And so, going from in the hornet's nest to being on the outside of the hornet's nest was a different experience. So we go there, we're doing a lot of counter IED, counter sniper missions. And, again, not a whole lot of work on my own guys, thank God. Saw a lot of Iraqis, basically anytime that we were going through and taking down their houses. If something happened and they were, injured, I would have to take care of them. And so operating on my own was kind of where I knew that I liked doing that, being able to function on my own without having a doctor over top of me. So that kind of put the whole idea of me becoming an independent duty corpsman into the mix, because I always wanted to be that and go that route. Fast forward, came back from that, went through a MU with 13th MU. I was with 1st DoD company at the time, and I met the IDC on the Green Bay that I was on, the ship, and they ended up writing me a letter of recommendation to go to IDC school. So when I came back from that deployment in 2011, I go through IDC school. By that point in my life, I'd gone through divorce. I ended up remarrying to the beautiful wife I still have today. I don't know how she puts up with me. We've been together for 16 years, and she's gone through quite a few deployments with me, and still wants to keep me around. And so I go through IDC school, and that's where I kind of started realizing that I needed to sort my own problems out. I had a whole year of not being non-deployable. I reconnected with my faith. That was amazing. I was going to church every Sunday. I was able to be home and kind of start working on things. And, my life was getting a little bit better, but I was still angry all the time. I was still drinking. I was controlling it, but I was still drinking heavily at the time. I was, going through school. I graduated with honors from IDC school, and then I get pushed over to a clinic in Georgia because I hadn't been really on a short billet yet. Within 3 months of being there, I got IA'd to Afghanistan with a unit from Camp Pendleton, and our job was to basically break down the entire base of Camp Leatherneck. That was a really different deployment for me because that was the first time I was never outside the wire. I was inside the wire. As our veteran brothers and sisters know, I was a FOBIT. And that was kind of humbling because I had always been the warrior, and here I am with the logistics unit behind the wire and not outside the wire. And, I'm not going to lie, it was a really neat experience because I could shower every day. I was sleeping inside of a nice can that was, comfortable, had a bed. I could go shopping. Like, who goes shopping in a combat zone? I could go shopping. I mean, this was wild. And I was kind of embarrassed to ever talk about that deployment because all my brothers are like, wait, you went to Afghanistan and you never left the wire? I was like, nah, man. I mean, they shot a few rockets at us and we got mortared every now and then. We had to go find a cement thing to go hide under. But I was like, no, that was pretty wild. I got to learn how to operate heavy equipment, which was pretty cool. Being able to, work with my Marines, because anytime I'm with my Marines, I want to know what they do. So, I got to learn how to drive all of their heavy equipment on front end loaders and dozers and all kinds of things. Giant forklifts picking up these huge containers and putting them on the back of semi trucks. So, I was always staying busy, but that was definitely an interesting deployment. I came back from that in 2014, and then I had a year at the clinic, not really doing a whole lot. But then I got orders over to SEAL Team 1, which was kind of like putting me back into where I felt comfortable. Operationally got to go through a bunch of schools, completed dive school, jump school in the process. And we got sent on a deployment to go to Guam and operate all over Southeast Asia with our partner forces, and then whatever needed to happen. I was in a good spot that I thought, like, I was feeling really good about myself. But when I got to Guam, our funding for a lot of the missions that were going on just was cut. That was the first time in my career where I'm forward deployed, but I had zero purpose. I had nothing. I was just sitting there hanging out on this island. And it was a beautiful island. Guam's amazing. I was diving all the time, but this darkness inside me that I've been keeping down for so long started to creep up, and I couldn't explain it. I didn't know what was going on. And the drinking, just for purposes of like partying and having fun with my dudes, basically consumed me. I went into the darkest depression I'd ever been in my life, to the point to where I didn't want to be on the planet anymore. I don't know why. I can't say I had a bad career. I can't say that I was unhappy with my, my family, but it's just this like grief, anxiety, anger, and like waking up in a pool of sweat for no reason in the middle of the night. Don't know why. I can't sit there and say I was having horrible nightmares because I don't really remember them, but I was completely just a loss. And it, like, to the point to where I didn't think I could escape it anymore. I tried to talk to some people. I kind of briefly was trying to talk to my wife about it. She's like, go talk to somebody, go get help. But by that point, I was just so unhappy with everything that was going on. I was going on, like, I think someone told me they had a rough estimate of like, I had like a 25 or 26 day bender. And through that point of drinking, I came up with my own plan on how I was going to make an accident happen. I was going on diving missions, and I basically, on one of them, rigged up at the bottom about 145 feet deep underneath a sunken battleship, and tied myself off, and with no reason to come up. I was just going to fall asleep underwater. If anybody has a diving background, basically you hit this thing called nitrogen narcosis, and it basically, you don't know what's going on anymore. And what happens is you basically spit your regulator out and you drown underwater. And it's supposed to be like super peaceful. I don't know. Thankfully some guys were diving down there around me, and they found me, completely looped out of my mind. I was just kind of laying on the bottom underneath this ship, tied off to it, and they brought me back up. And I woke up in a recompression chamber. And instead of like someone questioning it, I was like, oh man, I fouled up. I couldn't untie myself. I was looking at the bottom of this thing and I lost track of time. And, the nitrogen narcosis got a hold of me, and it was a mistake. It'll never happen again. And so like, Doc, you're dumb. Don't do that again. I tried it again. And during that one, I was like, what am I doing? This is dumb. And I came up myself. What basically put me in check during that process is I was in my emergency response vehicle, hammered, drunk, and I tried to get back into our team housing that was off-base housing where we were in Guam. And there was a guy at the security checkpoint, which is never there. And, they had me do a blood alcohol test, and they had this little, I call it the magic mic. It looks like a giant microphone, and it lights up green, yellow, and red when you blow into it. And I blew red 3 times. That was a crazy awakening. I had to go report to 2 2-star JSOC commanders. My commanding officer couldn't do anything for me. 3 days before that, I found out that I had made chief. This is in 2018. And instead of going through chief season, instead of busting me down, which would have got me out of the military because I would have gone from E65, they withheld my promotion. So I was unable to go through chief season. And then I had to go back home, and I had to go through SARP. I did 45 days inpatient rehab and over in SARP Point Loma. Then I had to go get in touch with my fillings at Oasis, which was a 3rd floor of the building I was in, for another 45 days. And that's what really, I had to meet myself, look myself in the mirror and meet the person that was just out of control. I had lost all faith, I basically was just a broken, hot mess. And it sucks to talk about because I had a great family, I had a great career, and I basically just went into this darkness, this hole, a cave that I just couldn't climb out of, and I don't know why. And it was just from always having the answers and helping everybody and giving everybody all this great advice of how they could help themselves, their career and everything. I was just, none of it worked on me though. I wasn't listening to anything that I was giving out. I'm blessed and so thankful that I have a career after that point. I stayed in the teams. I did another workup with them. They welcomed me back, open arms. There was no outcast. You're broken, Doc. We can't use you. I got the help I needed. And coming out of that whole experience of doing the 45 days in patient care for alcohol abuse and the Oasis and that trip, I ended up going back to church and reestablished my faith and got invited to this little coffee group. They're called Nomads, and they meet every Saturday morning and drink coffee at a different coffee shop and talk about scripture. And I met this guy named Rick Wolf, and someone introduced me to him. And he's like, hey man, he's like, I think you would be a great fit for this organization. We work with active duty military, only active duty military. It's not because there's a ton of veteran programs out there and they're amazing. One I actually went through was a men's group through Mighty Oaks. Awesome faith-based organization that helps veterans, active duty, even Leos, firefighters. It's a really awesome experience. You just go out in the wilderness and stay at a ranch and you kind of get to like sit down and really hard talk too. None of this hand holding stuff, none of this kumbaya stuff. Like, it's legit. It punches you in the gut, and I needed that. And so I was lucky to be able to go to that. And then getting, introduced to Rick Wolf, and he is the man behind Soul Survivor Outdoor. And what they do is they go to different units that ask to be invited to them, and they take a group of active military, and they're completely out of uniform. We go meet up at a place, and we do fishing, surfing, we go skydiving, horseback riding, skeet and trap shooting, and it's real casual. We hang out, and through mentors like me and other veterans, we just get to know this military group that's there, and just talk to them. And then we go through what we're doing, whether it be like rock climbing or skydiving or surfing. Those are the events I'm usually at. Afterwards we have a speaker. Sometimes I'm a speaker, Rick's a speaker, and we kind of just deliver a message of kind of like, what is your belief system? Like, where do you put your money in stock? Like, if your job left today, if your family left you today, what's your rock? Do you have faith? Have you ever heard of Jesus? And we kind of just show them through, the military is real big on this whole thing with, being strong and fit, but the other thing is like having spiritual fitness. So without having that spiritual fitness and that resiliency already built into your day-to-day routine, how are you going to respond to a situation of being in a combat zone, watching one of your brothers or sisters not make it home, seeing innocent civilians killed? How are you going to respond to that and be strong through it and know how to ask for help when you need it? And then realize, like, hey, like, I believe in God. This is what I put my stock in. This is my rock. This is my foundation. So when I'm in a bad place, I go and talk to Jesus. I go and talk to my brothers and sisters in Christ and go to church, or I go to a coffee shop and talk about scripture. And that's how I'm able to ground myself daily. And, through working with Soul Survivor Outdoor, that's where I found my calling. And realize that's what I want to do. I want to be involved in an organization that is able to hopefully find someone like me 20 years ago and be able to give them the tools they need, in hopes that they will never find themselves in a situation I was ever in, of not knowing where to go and having just this hurt and anger every single day when I could find a way to work through it. And that was kind of what I did. And here I am at 22 years in the military, and I'm at a clinic now, and I'm able to mentor young sailors and corpsmen and bring them up, the way I was brought up, but also drop little seeds, and hoping that they catch on and it grows and they understand, how to be able to ask for help, work through problems, and build up that that spiritual fitness and that resiliency. So they, once they go forward, which eventually we will, they'll go forward into a combat zone one way or another, or they'll have a horrible experience in real life and they'll have the ability to work through it. So yeah, that's my story.
Hey, that's great stuff, John. This is obviously an eye-opening way of talking about your story. And luckily enough, you're still in the military to have your mindset wrapped around the military concept of everything. You haven't stepped out of the door yet to transition out to see how that transitions. And a lot of times what you talk about here may not transition out there because there's no place for our war there. They're just, you're not gonna have that care that you have in that military, the brotherhood, the acceptance back after going through hell, after your experience of, almost giving up on yourself or creating an environment that was really toxic to yourself, and then finding out you really need that help and getting that help and pushing yourself in your faith, pushing yourself in behaviors and new mechanisms of support, and still being able to mentor and give that out, man. That's such a great piece. And thanks for, going through all the programs you have. And, you know, Soul Survivor Foundation. That link is in the show notes. I put that in there. I put a link to it so anybody can look at the show notes, and you can see this organization that he's talking about, and you know, be part of it, or be part of something. And you know, for you to have gone through all these programs, that's a huge stack of resources for sure. And then for your story, man, this is like you know, I talk about it a lot, and I have a story, the stories that guys want to come on and talk about their stories, called Creating Chaos. And you know, it's really kind of being an unfiltered story. And I think your story is kind of unfiltered. I mean, I still feel it filtered. Nobody can experience the battlefield like we do, you know, like we did, as you spoke about the, you know, just the battlefield. It was just like so surreal, and like a movie set. It's real. It's getting real. But no one else will, you know, we went to battle, so hopefully nobody else has to experience that, right? And when we come back, we're still kind of experiencing these high intensity moments in our lives where we have to like really figure out, you know, where do we want to concentrate our energy, our love, our support, our faith, and put all that stuff together. And so it's great to hear your story, brother. You know, if anybody wants to get a hold of Jon, you know, they could do it through me. But Jon, is there anything else you want to say? And then you know, tell us where to get a hold of you. You know, all your stuff's in my safekeeping, but whatever you want to give there, brother.
Yeah, I'm on and off social media quite a bit. I actually just, funny enough, just got back on. I had my accounts, they were just disabled. But my wife is trying to sell her card, and she doesn't know how to navigate that stuff. So I opened my accounts back up. So I can be found on Facebook. It's just my name, Jon O'Hare, and Instagram. But you know, you can you know, if someone wants to truly reach out to me and talk to me, you know, offline, Chief has my phone number, and I have no problem if someone is in true need of help or just wants to kind of get a little bit more insight on some of the things I've done or the programs I've been through to help myself. You can definitely get my number from Chief. But yeah, if you can find me on social media too. Like I said, I'm currently a little bit more active in right now because I'm just trying to help my wife with her situation. But I don't know if I'll keep them open. But like I said, you can get me through you know, through Chief. But yeah, you brought up a solid point though, the chaos, you know, and I realized that was my problem. I think a lot of operators, from having being forward deployed, you know, whether you're special operations, a grunt, you know, Army, doesn't matter, combat corpsmen, combat medics, like we're operators, you know, our background is, you know, the best medicine is round down range. You know, if the enemy can't shoot you, then your guys are safe, right? So that's how we operate. But the problem is, when we are agents of chaos. We learn how to work through it on the battlefield, but when we come home, there's no chaos. So what do people like us do? Well, we need it, so we create our own chaos, and that's what I was doing. You know, psychologists will call it, you know, the destructive behavior, or you know, they have a bunch of different terms they like to use for it, but it's just we create our own chaos, and if we don't have it, we're going to find it, or we're going to initiate it ourselves, so we have a problem to solve, because that's what we do. We solve problems. And I know that was definitely what I was doing. I was being self-sabotaging, creating chaos for myself, and so I could try to work through the problem because there was nothing going on at home. And it's horrible. And then once it happens, sometimes some of the chaos you create can't be fixed. You know, you lose relationships, you lose your family, and that's one thing I never want to see anybody go through. I was blessed that the fact that my wife is still here with me today, working with me and helping me get better, so I can be the man, the husband, and the father that my family deserves. And not everybody's blessed to have that, you know. And so that's where working with these groups, working with Chief through his programs, you know, finding other wounded warrior programs, or, you know, Mighty Oaks or Soul Survivor for the active duty personnel. Like, we are here and we have these programs available so we can mitigate that chaos and help people take everything they've learned and put that energy for good.
Great stuff, brother. Hey, thanks a lot for being on my show today. It's an honor to have you on here.
I
Much
appreciate.
appreciation.
No, thanks for reaching out, Chief. This is awesome. I'm glad I could contribute to this, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Thanks, brother. Hey, this is Combat Vet Vision. This is a place where I get to talk, but I also get to bring my other fellow veterans on to talk. Our sponsors, supporters, volunteers. A lot of it's based off of Warrior Built to the PTSD Foundation, but there's so many other organizations out there. And Jon O'Hare just went over those. Still active, about ready to retire. Thank goodness he got to stay and do that thing. But sometimes that just doesn't work out. Hey, a couple things real quick. I just want to mention to our combat vets, hey, if anybody wants to go to pickleball, the 11th, there's this really cool pickleball thing. Please reach out for me to me to get the flyer for that. And it's in Southern California. Just can't remember where it's at right now. And then yeah, and then I got my word groups on Tuesday nights. So if there's a veteran out there, a combat vet that really needs to get that support, please reach out to me. Let's talk about it. Let's get some help to those people that need it. But that's all I got. Till next time, hey, strength and honor. Out.